Only 2 more modules to go. This week, we're reviewing some methods of teaching sequelic intraverbals. Many step-by-step teaching protocols are covered in the assigned reading, and in this Edpuzzle, we'll be focusing on conceptualizing the different types of relations between stimuli that can be taught. Here are the objectives for this module. Much of our complex verbal behavior comes down to very sophisticated conditional stimulus discrimination. Here's an example of conditional stimulus discrimination from Cooper, Heron, and Heward's text in Chapter 17. A pigeon pecks a colored key only when the sample stimulus matches that color. The key that is pecked is the SD. The sample stimulus is the conditional SD, or contextual stimulus. Refelt and Barnes-Holmes defines relating stimuli as responding to one event in terms of another, and that is simply conditional discrimination. I could teach you to select the bigger circle every time. That would be stimulus discrimination. I could also teach you to select the bigger circle in the presence of the word bigger, and the smaller circle in the presence of the word smaller. That is conditional stimulus discrimination, also called relational responding. Refelt and Barnes-Holmes go on to note that, by the definition established based on relational frame theory, or RFT, for relational responding to be verbal, it has to be controlled by contextual cues beyond the non-arbitrary stimulus properties that participate in the relation. That is, the responding must be what is called arbitrarily applicable relational responding. The proposal is that non-human animals do not engage in verbal behavior and cannot experience emergent arbitrarily applicable relational responding. Bear in mind, though, that some humans require extensive training in order to experience this emergent responding as well, as discussed in the assigned reading. Ultimately, Skinner's definition of verbal behavior comes back to whether the behavior is maintained by socially mediated consequences. Emergent responding based on non-arbitrary qualities of stimuli may qualify. The difference in size between circles is an example of a non-arbitrary relation. It's physically a part of the stimuli. An example of an arbitrary relation from the assigned reading is the difference in the value of coins. A dime is worth more than a nickel, but there's nothing physically inherent to these stimuli that is associated with that relation. In fact, a nickel is bigger than a dime, even though it's worth less. Do note that the authors state that if a verbally sophisticated person is taught that $1 is more than 50 cents, that they will, quote-unquote, automatically learn the relation that 50 cents is less than $1. But the major take-home point of this module is that it does not always automatically happen. Directly training those symmetrical relations is what can make emergence of new symmetrical relations more likely in the future. Stimuli can arbitrarily be related in many different ways. These are just a few examples from the assigned reading. Let's review them first. Which of these is an example of coordination? Distinction, opposition, comparison, and how about hierarchy? With regards to each type of relation, if one relation between stimuli is taught, others can emerge. Let's look at some examples. Note that in each of these cases, we're focusing on primarily what we would teach, not exactly how to teach it. The step-by-step process of establishing each relational network of stimuli is detailed in the assigned reading, and we will practice a bit in class. In the relation between stimuli of coordination or sameness, I might teach you to write cat in the presence of a picture of a cat. The stimuli, quote-unquote, mean the same thing. Then, I might teach you to read cat out loud in the presence of the word cat. If you were then able to write cat when I say cat, that would be an emergent relation, called either symmetry or mutual entailment. Same situation if you learn to select a picture of a cat out of an array in the presence of the word cat. This is an amazing phenomenon when you think about it, but ultimately, the written word cat and the spoken word cat are still present in the same environment at the same time during training. They may come to occasion relational responding, in part because of that physical pairing. The really incredible emergent relation is transitivity or combinatorial entailment. For most humans with sophisticated verbal repertoires, the behavior of saying cat in the presence of the picture of a cat will emerge untrained, and the reverse, selecting a picture of a cat from an array when the word cat is spoken. This emergence cannot be explained by the stimuli ever being physically together in the same place at the same time, nor by there being a physical similarity between the stimuli. The relation is completely arbitrary. From here on out, the relations between stimuli only get more complex. That is a major contributor to the emergence of focus on relational frame theory, or RFT. Up until behavior analysts began focusing deeply on the phenomenon of different emergent relations between stimuli, particularly arbitrarily applicable relational responding, most research had only been conducted with regards to the relation of coordination, called equivalence at the time. Other relations were certainly acknowledged, but there wasn't an effort to truly elaborate on how they could be effectively trained, such that emergent relational responding was likely. In the case of the relation of distinction, we want to teach that stimuli are different from other stimuli. Of course, every stimulus is different from every other stimulus in some way. We have to include contextual relational cues, or conditional SDs, to occasion-specific responses. I'll teach that a tennis ball is different from a cue ball. Now, these balls are the same with regard to size, and also different with regards to color, but different as well with regards to their weight and texture. Again, I have to specify with a conditional SD that they're different with regards to color. Perhaps I would ask the learner to select the ball that is a different color from an array of stimuli. If the symmetrical or mutually entailed relational response emerges, I could present the cue ball and ask what is different about the tennis ball. Now I'll also teach that a baseball is a different color than the tennis ball. Again, the symmetrical relation will likely emerge. But what about the transitive relations? We know that a baseball is a different color from a tennis ball, and so is a cue ball. But we actually don't know about the relation between a cue ball and a baseball when it comes to distinction. They may actually be the same color as each other, and in this case, they are. The assigned reading discusses a couple of examples of establishment of non-arbitrary relations of opposition. Let's take it a step further with an arbitrary relation. As noted in the assigned reading, before teaching this type of relational responding, the learner must understand the target stimulus dimension. That is, they must be able to tact the relevant characteristic of the stimulus. So in this case, the learner must already be able to respond with regards to a dog being tame and a wolf being wild. We could then teach that wild is the opposite of tame, and vice versa, with specific examples of a wild animal and a tame animal. If we add additional stimuli to this relational network, then the transitive emergent relation would actually be that the wild animals are the same with regards to their wildness. Now on to comparison. Again, we'll focus on arbitrary relations. A non-arbitrary relation would be to teach that one basket has more apples in it than another, but that is a physical difference. Instead, let's teach that wearing a sweater is warmer than wearing a t-shirt or a bathing suit. As was the case with distinction, just because we know the relation between a sweater and a t-shirt and a sweater and a bathing suit doesn't mean that we automatically know the relation between a t-shirt and a swimsuit. The t-shirt and swimsuit are both less warm than a sweater, but which one is warmer or cooler? Unknown based on the training alone. But what if we teach two directionally different relations of comparison? A sweater is warmer than a t-shirt, but a heavy winter coat is warmer than a sweater. Now, the relations that a winter coat is warmer than a t-shirt and that a t-shirt is cooler than a heavy winter coat can emerge untaught. Finally, hierarchies, a really complex set of relations. The image in the assigned reading says it all. Yikes. Let's turn this into a real-life example, similar to the one used in the text. The category of games includes cards and chess chess are types of games. Cards and chess are different types of games, though. Card games include poker and Go Fish. The emergent relational response is that poker and Go Fish are types of card games. A further emergent relation is that this category of games overall includes poker and Go Fish. This review of conditional discrimination training with expansion to different types of relations between stimuli that can be established sets the stage for us to teach more complex sequelic intraverbal responding. In class, we'll review a few more tips for teaching sequelics, and we'll practice creating some basic teaching protocols.